Shalom. I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you regarding the current status of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, and it is as follows. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said that before the resumption of direct peace talks with Israel, the United States demanded that the Palestinians avoid lobbying for recognition in various United Nations organizations, including the International Criminal Court. Initially, the Palestinians refused. However, Abbas said that the Palestinians agreed to enter direct peace talks with Israel only because the United States promised that they would support the Palestinian demands that Israel withdraw to the pre-1967 borders as a basis for any final status agreement with Israel. Without it, he said, the Palestinians would not have agreed to participate in the direct peace talks. Furthermore, Israel agreed to release 104 Palestinian prisoners in 4 stages. Abbas said he agreed to delay seeking full United Nations membership, which comes through the United Nations Security Council, which would recognize a Palestinian state, in return for release of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. I consider the issue of the United Nations to be very important, but the case of the prisoners is worthy of sacrifice, he added. We have prepared 63 requests to join 63 United Nations agencies and organizations, but I have said the issue of prisoners is now more significant. The first 26 prisoners have already been released. The second group of Palestinian prisoners is expected to be released by the end of September. Palestinian Minister of Prisoner Affairs Issa Karaka said that the third round of Palestinian prisoners release will take place on October the 29th. According to Karaka, the next group of prisoners will be released regardless of diplomatic progress of the peace talks, adding that the prisoners will only be released to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The minister added that the fourth and final group of prisoners will be released on March the 28th. Regarding Palestinian goals for the peace talks, Mahmoud Abbas reassured his fellow Fatah leaders that he would not make any concessions to Israel during negotiations with them. The Palestinian position is the same as it's been in the past, he explained. This means Jerusalem is at the top of our list of priorities. A Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, which is a red line for us. Without that, there will be no solution. If there is any development and an agreement, it is known that we will go for a national referendum, Abbas said. It won't be enough to have the approval of the Fatah Central Committee or the PLO Executive Council for an agreement. Rather, we would seek a national referendum because a peace agreement would represent Palestinians everywhere. Nabil Sha'ath, member of the Fatah Central Committee, said that despite the lack of progress, the Palestinian Authority was determined to continue with the peace talks while not ruling out the possibility of going to international agencies and organizations, including the UN Security Council, if the current negotiations fail. According to Riyad al-Malki, the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinians agreed to resume direct peace talks with Israel because the United States submitted written guarantees to the Palestinian leadership backing the establishment of a Palestinian state while declaring Israel's settlements illegal. As a result, al-Malki said, the U.S. administration, which presented the written guarantees to the Palestinian leadership, is fully responsible for Israel's attempts to not come to a final status peace agreement while continuing settlement construction, which violates the two-state solution. He explained that the Palestinians agreed to resume the talks not only due to Israel's approval to release 104 prisoners, but because the United States had submitted to the Palestinian side written assurances that it considers settlement activities illegal and backs a Palestinian state. It is still too early to speak about evaluating the rounds of talks that have been held so far the last 4 weeks, al-Malki said, adding, all that I can say is that the ongoing Israeli settlement activities overshadow the meetings which were conducted under the U.S. sponsorship. The Palestinian side is expecting more U.S. pressure on Israel to halt settlement construction because no one else in the world is able to do so. Al-Malki said that the Palestinians are in constant contact with the United States and other international parties to intensify pressure on Israel. We had repeatedly informed the United States and the international community that they are fully responsible for the situation. Everyone, including the Palestinians, considers the talks to be a last opportunity for peace. Regarding the current status of peace talks, Israel and Palestinian negotiators met recently for the fifth round of talks since they were started in July. In the latest meeting, both sides presented their view on final status issues, but no agreement between them has been reached. Mahmoud Abbas said that all that has taken place so far has been a review by both sides of each other's negotiating position. A Palestinian official said that formal talks between Israel and the Palestinians have not yet started. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry plans to meet with Arab League representatives and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in London to discuss the current status of the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. The Palestinians want a meeting with Kerry to express their disappointment in the progress of the talks so far. The Palestinians are unhappy over what they are saying is Israel's repeated attempts to dictate the talks' agenda, which have been focused on Israel's security. Abbas and his aides have also been displeased with what they perceive as U.S. mediator Martin Indyk's lack of insufficient participation in the talks. In presenting its view of a final status agreement, Israel has focused on issues of security. As a result, Israel wants to retain control of the West Bank, keep early warning stations on West Bank hilltops, and retain military bases near the Jordanian border. The current proposal suggests that Israel would like to keep control of about 40% of the West Bank. Furthermore, Israel discussed the idea of a Palestinian state with a provisional border with the Palestinians. According to a Palestinian official, Israel said, "Let's discuss a state with provisional borders." In return, the Palestinians said, "Let's agree on a Palestinian state based upon 1967 borders first, and then we can agree on having this state in phases." The idea of a Palestinian state with temporary borders would give the Palestinians independence while leaving the issues such as the fate of Jerusalem and the right of return of Palestinian refugees to later negotiations. According to a Palestinian official, Israel has proposed a Palestinian state on temporary borders on about 60% of the West Bank. Under this plan, Israel would keep dozens of Jewish settlements and military bases in the West Bank. This plan has been rejected by the Palestinians. Yasser Abed Rabbo, a top aide to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, urged the United States to put pressure on Israel. Otherwise, he said, there will be no progress in the peace talks. A Palestinian official said, agreeing with Israel's ideas on the issue of security will give Israel control over all the routes and major centers in the West Bank. The Palestinians refused all Israel's proposals and demanded sovereignty throughout the West Bank. However, we did agree to the presence of NATO troops to patrol any future border. In a Rosh Hashanah statement to the Jewish public, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he hoped that peace talks with the Palestinians would succeed. We seek to advance peace with the Palestinians while maintaining our security and ensuring that the peace will be real and genuine. This peace needs to be anchored in recognition of Israel as a Jewish state and in Israel's security. This is what is ultimately needed for us to be able to reach a final status peace agreement with the Palestinians. Furthermore, Israel's Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon said that Israel is not willing to vacate the major Jewish settlement blocks in the West Bank in any agreement with the Palestinians. Regarding formation of sub-negotiating committees on permanent status issues such as Jerusalem, settlements, refugees, water, security, borders, and release of prisoners, al-Malki said it was still too early to speak about such groups. When asked about the options the Palestinians have in case the peace talks fail, al-Malki said, "Even if we have other options, we won't reveal them at this time," noting that we bear in mind the 9-month ultimatum to finalize the talks, and we hope we will succeed and reach our goals. The Palestinians continue to insist that they will not give up on the right of return of Palestinian refugees, said Palestinian spokesman Nabil Radena, adding that the main goal of the negotiations with Israel is to establish a Palestinian state based upon 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, with the return of Palestinian refugees in accordance with resolutions by the international community and the Arab Peace Initiative. He reiterated that Jewish settlements is an obstacle to reaching a just peace based upon the rights of the Palestinian people that cannot be canceled. Meanwhile, there are rumors that Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is planning a second Bar Ilan speech in October. His initial Bar Ilan speech was in 2009. This second speech is said to lay out Israel's red lines and reiterate Israel's willingness to allow the establishment of a Palestinian Authority-run state in the West Bank. A report in an Israeli newspaper said that Netanyahu was planning to offer the Palestinian Authority a temporary agreement in which Israel would surrender more land to the Palestinians. The offer would be Israel's response to Palestinian demands that Israel withdraw from all of the West Bank and most of Jerusalem. Netanyahu is likely to offer the Palestinians nearly all the land outside of the large settlement blocks, withdrawing Israeli troops from many areas where Jews live, especially in the Benjamin area of the West Bank. The religious Zionist party Jewish Home opposes the possible Bar Ilan speech, saying that during these times when the Middle East is being rocked by war, the death of children with chemical weapons, and dictators that are being deposed, Israel must finally understand and accept that a Palestinian state will do nothing but bring more terror and mourning to Israelis, Jewish Home said, adding, "We will continue to be the only party in Netanyahu's government that opposes withdrawals and sees the Zionist future as one of building, development, and settlement. We hope there will be no additional Bar Ilan type speeches made by Netanyahu." As a result, members of the Jewish Home Party, as well as several members within Benjamin Netanyahu's own party, that is Likud, have announced that they are preparing for the possibility of new developments in Israeli-Palestinian talks. Among them making plans are Likud Knesset members Zev Elkin, Ofer Akunas, Danny Danon, Zippy Hotovely, and Yerev Levin. Likud Knesset member and Israel Deputy Transport Minister Zippy Hotovely have suggested that the solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the annexation of the West Bank and a creation of a Palestinian state in the Gaza Strip. Furthermore, Likud Interior Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that Israel will not accept a Palestinian demand to return to the 1967 borders as a part of a renewal of peace talks. Sa'ar also addressed the issue of potential settlement evacuation and said, "We do not believe in uprooting Jewish communities and do not believe that this will lead to peace." Sa'ar further noted, "We shall insist on keeping a united and undivided Jerusalem as Israel's capital." At least 5 European nations have recently begun warning companies and businessmen against engaging in business activity in Israel's settlements as they risk breaking local and international law, according to reports received by Israel's foreign ministry. The countries mentioned by Israel's ambassadors include Britain, Germany, Denmark, Holland, and Sweden. According to one report, one country's foreign office told a company involved in trade beyond the 1967 borders that its actions are in violation of local law and international law, which stipulates that settlements are illegal. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said that the European Union settlement guidelines, which put into writing EU policy restricting any EU financial cooperation with Israeli entities beyond the 1967 borders and calling for Israel to sign a territorial clause limiting the scope of any future agreement with the European Union to pre-1967 lines, was not a change from EU policies and was meant to signal that there were ramifications for continued settlement policy, he said. After meeting Netanyahu, the French Foreign Minister Fabius said that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict was the root cause of Mideast instability. Netanyahu disagreed with him, saying that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not the root cause of instability in the Middle East. If Israel makes peace with the Palestinians today, the centrifuges will not stop spinning in Iran, the turmoil will not stop in Syria, the instability in North Africa will not end, and the attacks on the West will not cease, he said. Well, that's going to conclude this week's update, where we shared with you the current status of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.